LaVoy was shot dead in Oregon a few weeks ago by authorities. You may remember seeing it. It was on television quite often, but unfortunately the media has forgot about the story. I have not, Unfiltered has not, Newsmax has not, and we are going to continue sticking with this story and things about the BLM. On the phone with me right now, making her first, if you will, media appearance since the death of her husband, is Jeanette Finicum. Jeanette, thank you for taking the time and being so brave in joining me today.
Thank you, Dennis, for having me.
Okay. Last night, you and I spoke about this interview, and I asked you first and foremost about the autopsy results that you received back because the family hired somebody to do a private autopsy. You told me that you could not share the results of that autopsy until the feds released theirs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and I will respect that, and I think everybody else watching does as well. That being said, you also told me that your lawyer was up in Oregon. And I asked you, hey, is he going to check out the SUV that LaVoy was driving? And you told me?
I said that he was denied access to view the truck and will not be able to unless we go further with other legal matters.
How are you ever going to know what exactly happened that day if your lawyer does not have access to information such as what took place with that truck?
Well, I don't have to know all the ins and outs legally. I know who my husband is, and I know who he was, and so I know what happened in his final moments. I know what kind of man he was. My children know what kind of man he was, and so we can rest assured and know those things for ourselves.
All right. Well, Jeanette, let me ask you a question. I want to take you back to that snowy day in Oregon. You say that you know your husband, and there's no doubt you'll know him better than anybody else does. What happened? Why did your husband drive towards the men and then veer off to the snow? I mean, in your estimation, you've seen the video. What do you think took place?
I think that when he took off, he was trying to get to the sheriff's. He said as much. And as he was going around the curb, I don't believe he expected a roadblock. He had to make split-second decisions. He had to decide whether to go to the right or go through the middle or turn to the left, where it seemed to be the least risky. And so I believe that in those couple of seconds, he chose to go that direction to save the people in the truck. I know that he dashed out to diffuse the situation. I know that with every part in my soul. I know that. I know that he was trying to protect those two women and Ryan Bundy in the back seat of that truck. Nobody runs out of their truck with their hands up expecting to be shot. You know, what is it that our country has turned into? Do we believe that mere words justify the use of deadly force? Do we believe that peaceful actions justify the use of deadly force? Do we believe that two hands up in surrender justifies the use of deadly force?
Go ahead, Jeanette. I was going to ask you a question. Do you believe that your husband was murdered?
I believe he was taken out.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Why do you think? I tend to agree with everything that you say. I mean, I didn't know LaVoy, so I can't attest to what you're saying about the fact that he was the sort of man who would protect the other people in his car before himself. But in talking to you, I'm going to take your word for it because you seem like one of the most honest people I've ever spoke to on the phone. I told you that last night. And so in that being said, I watched this video and I see a man, if I'm taking your description of him, which is a man who's going to worry about the people who are in that car before he worries about himself. And so he jumps out, he's got his hands up, he's in deep snow, and I don't believe he was reaching for a gun. Do you believe he was reaching for a gun?
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that there were other things going on that we won't know until we have sound. We won't know until we have further information, and which we are actively working on getting. And we are going to move forward and are actively engaged in pressing forward with a wrongful death suit.
Because you think, why do you think he was taken out, using your words?
Yeah, and maybe that's a poor choice of words. I believe that he was killed, and I believe that it wasn't necessary for him to be killed. I believe that he had his hands up, he was surrendering. I've heard from so many different people that the hard stop that was there, the kill stop they call it, wasn't necessary. These people weren't doing anything illegal, maybe a misdemeanor and fleeing from the first stop, but they had an ambush blockade style stop, and here they are saying that they were stopped just because they had a traffic stop. You don't have a traffic stop and go around the corner and have that hard stop, kill stop that they call it, blockade. You don't do that for a normal traffic stop. So I believe that they were out there, they were prepared, they had thought this through, they had trimmed tree lines, they had done all of these things to make sure that whoever came through there did not make it through. And by the grace of God, those 3 people that were in the back of that truck were saved. They were saved. And I believe my husband had a great deal to do with that. By jumping out of the truck with his hands up, trying to defuse the situation.
I have 5.5 minutes left. I want to get a bunch of other things in here. Yes or no, and a little description if you like. Was your husband a violent man?
No, he wasn't. He didn't so much as even have a traffic ticket on his record. He never went over the speed limit. He always talked to me about keeping the speed limit. He was a kind, loving, gentle man. He was giving of his time to our family and to others, and whoever needed him, he was always there.
Let me change direction for 1 second. I want to talk about the impact this has all had on you. You have a ranch in Arizona, am I correct?
Yes.
Are you now, are you alone there?
I am with my youngest daughter, who's still in high school. She's a senior this year.
So it's just you and your daughter?
Yes.
How are you going to take care of the ranch without LaVoy?
That's a difficult one. That's something we're still trying to put together and trying to put a plan together and trying to figure out how to manage that.
Is your world, I mean, you sound very strong on the phone, which, amazing. Is your world, is your world shattered?
Our world is completely different. Our world, there's so much of us that left that day with him, and there's so much that he did and took care of, and there's so much of him that is missing in all of us now, and so much that we will not have the opportunity to have with him. Our grandchildren will not know him, and it's been an overwhelming sorrow. But I have the gift that God has given me, the surety of knowing that I will be with him again someday. And I'm grateful for my belief in God and in the plan of happiness, and that we will have eternity together. But, being here on earth by yourself is a very difficult thing to do.
We only have 3 minutes left, so I want to try to get in as much as we possibly can. When you're alone at night and you're thinking about his absence, do you wish that he didn't go to Oregon, or are you still do you still stand behind what he did?
I stand behind my husband 100%.
I asked you last night about the BLM and fines that you owe them, and they are going to come after those fines eventually. You know it, I know it. And I asked you if it means to have to save your ranch and to be able to pay your bills, will you pay those fines to the BLM?
I haven't made that decision yet. But I can't, in all good conscience, see myself doing something different than he did. But I have not made a final decision about what I'm going to do.
What do the American people, what do they not know about the Bureau of Land Management?
Well, I think they're learning a lot right now, where they are an overreaching, unconstitutional organization. They they have no authority, yet they have been given the authority to go in and police us out there on the range. And I think that we, as the American people, need to stand up and put our government back in check within the confines of the Constitution.
We have 1 minute left. I mean, yesterday all over the internet there were stories about the FBI was closing in on you and they were going to take your cattle and they were going to shut you down. Was that just rumor, or is there really activity going on? And by the way, we have less than a minute.
That was a rumor. However, it was a credible person telling me about that, about the trucks heading out my direction, and so we had to check it out. It was very nerve-wracking there for a minute, but we were able to find my cows safe and sound. And I just have to say really quickly how much I appreciate everybody who has stood by our family and has supported us and came to my aid yesterday. I was so amazed at all the people that came to help, and I just want to thank you. I want to thank all of you.
I have less than 30 seconds. You got to tell me this in 20 seconds, Jeanette. When you take a look at the way the media has covered your husband's story, not including us, are you disappointed? 10 seconds.
Yes, I am disappointed in the way they portrayed such a good man.
And
he doesn't fit their narrative.
And what is their narrative?
Terrorist.
Thank you, Jeanette. We'll have you back. Good luck to you. Don't go away.
You.
We'll be back.